Good morning and thanks for joining us for August's Housing Hive. We're going to be covering today the topic of the importance of tenancy engagement with probably more of a lens on the importance of it, referring to sort of digital transformation projects from our perspective, but also generally in terms of the importance of it as a whole. We were planning to cover customer-led digital design. We were planning to have one of our clients, Sarah from Stepping Stone, join us. Unfortunately, she's unable to make it today. Very last minute, out of our control, out of her control. So we wish her well, and maybe we'll sort of revisit that one in a couple of months' time. But yeah, some of the information today is very sort of well aligned and closely sort of aligned to what we were planning to cover anyway. So that's good. So yeah, that's what we're going to be covering today. On to the agenda for the session, which will be we'll cover sort of brief introductions to us as an agency from Prodo's point of view. We do record these sessions as well, so if you wouldn't mind keeping the mics off for the time being, but feel free, please, to use the chat pane for any questions that you might have, and we'll look to cover those towards the end or throughout as well. I'd encourage you to do so. And then, yeah, we'll cover the main topic of today, and we've saved a little bit of time towards the end today for Q&As as well. But yeah, a very quick introduction to myself and us at Prodo as an agency. My name's Jacob. I'm head of sales here at Prodo, so I get really involved in early stage sort of scoping for digital projects with housing associations across the country. Worked exclusively with our Prodo sort of housing clients for the last coming up to 7 years. But us as a provider, we're essentially a digital transformation specialist. So we have a range of different products and services we use to help housing associations work through their digital transformation needs, usually with the goals of creating some capacity. So you sort of free up resources to spend that time with people who need you most, and sort of helping you ensure that digital works a little bit harder for you and able to sort of enable you to do that. So that's us as an agency. We'll come on to introductions to our guest speaker in a second, but today, as I say, yeah, we're going to be covering the sort of topic of the importance of tenancy engagement as a whole. I suppose at the heart of delivering meaningful and effective digital services, the importance of this actually, as I say, aligns really well and quite closely to the originally planned topic, which was more around sort of customer-led digital design, is a really important one and sort of growing in terms of importance as well. So if you think about this from a standpoint of us as a group today, us as a supplier, and you guys as obviously housing professionals, focusing on digital and customer experience in our sector that we operate in, we're all aware, aren't we, the fact that residents' needs and circumstances can be really quite diverse, and sometimes as diverse as the types of communities that you all serve as well. And that for us is why it's really important from our perspective to make sure that any digital solutions you put forward, whether that be websites, whether it be apps or portals, whatever it is, even some sort of consultancy planning projects as well, they need to be innovative to make sure that it's sort of doing the job that digital needs to do, but it also needs to be really well aligned with specific needs of the different sort of diverse customers that you guys support. So the essence of that is all around putting the customer at the centre and at the heart of the design process, and tenancy engagement is obviously one element of sort of feeding into that and making sure that the output is tailored to make sure that we're sort of we're in check with the evolving digital landscape and sort of making use of innovation. But from a best practice point of view, certainly when you consider the TSMs, when you consider the consumer regulations and sort of what you guys are all being measured on these days, it's not a desirable element in this from an engagement point of view. It's absolutely essential, and the regulatory side of things kind of feeds into that perfectly as well. So yeah, today's session is going to be focused on this topic as a whole. We have Thom with us, who we'll sort of introduce in a second from the Prodo team, giving us a bit more information on this from his point of view and sort of how we've been running things at Prodo from an engagement point of view. Now, Thom very much kind of spearheads the client engagement from our perspective and our team, using different methods to make sure that the products that we design and deliver for our housing clients are aligned to what tenants' needs. And obviously that's an evolving picture as time moves on. So yeah, we'll get into it in a second, but hopefully the session today will give you some valuable takeaways, some insights into whether it be sort of enhancing digital platforms as a whole, or if your focus is enhancing tenant engagement, or simply just a few fresh insights into customer-centered design when it comes to digital as well. Hopefully you'll find it useful. So yeah, over to you, Thom, to sort of introduce yourself and some of the information that you're looking to put forward today, if that's okay.
Cheers, Jake. So, hello everyone. So I'm from New Zealand originally, as the accent probably gives away, and I used to work in the social housing sector over there. And in New Zealand, when giving speeches to an audience or a community, we'd often start with a mihi, a formal introduction in Te Reo Māori. So it goes like this. Kia ora, ko Thom Shackleford toku ingoa, no Aotearoa aku te pone, ke te nau ke Peterborough, tēnā koutou, tamariki mai. What I basically said is, my name's Tom, I'm from New Zealand, somehow I found myself living in Peterborough, and it's great to meet you all. We opened speeches with mihis as a sign of respect to the first people of New Zealand, who we're fortunate enough to share the land with, and who are often overrepresented in social housing. Part of the social housing strategy over there is to host huis, or regular meetings, to engage with communities to collectively develop approaches to improving housing. And it comes from a recognition that a prescriptive approach has led to poor outcomes historically. And it's only through collaboration that solutions can be found. And what I'll be talking about today is how to engage with your communities when it comes to digital transformation. A bit more about myself. I've worked in property tech for 10 years in the private, commercial, and social housing sectors in New Zealand, Scandinavia, and now here in the UK. And since moving to the UK, I've led a digital data migration project for Islington Council's Almo merger and served as a senior product owner at Housemark. So everyone knows you need to digitalise to drive engagement, but often digitalisation can be seen as a quick fix to customer contact and satisfaction challenges. When a channel shift is forced, it can often lead to poor user experiences with functionalities that haven't been built around customers' needs and preferences. And when digital offerings that intend to serve customers fail to do so, it leads to an erosion of trust between landlords and their residents. When designing a digital solution, it's crucial that customer feedback is incorporated into the process to deliver an end product that works for users and ensures landlords can support the digitally excluded and those with different needs. So when undertaking consultancy projects or when implementing our SaaS product, we always stress the importance of giving customers the opportunity to be part of a focus group or partake in a survey, to have their voice heard and their ideas acted upon. The people that work in this sector, you here in the audience, are in this because you want to make a positive difference in your communities, and actively seeking input demonstrates this to customers. You want to get it right, and for customers to know that ultimately it's their system, they're its true owners. We've seen overwhelmingly positive feedback from focus groups during onboarding when we changed an aspect of a digital service that wasn't working for them and presented back to them with an improvement shaped by their voice. Some of the surveys we've undertaken have shown the vast majority of customers use digital services already to manage crucial aspects of their lives, like banking. 80% of respondents in one case wanted a new digital service, and the remaining 20% were only hesitant because of the existing system's shortcomings. Their primary concerns were around access to portals, how easy it is to actually log in and start using. Another concern is the solution not being a one-stop shop for all their needs. For example, having to log into the portal to raise a repair or complaint, and then having to go to a different site or make a phone call for some other crucial service, like receiving a tenancy document. A disconnect like this causes a lot of frustration. And lastly, they expressed concerns around the difficulty for reporting repairs, which we'll delve into shortly. So a portal needs to allow users to create accounts in an intuitive and hassle-free way to ensure a smooth entry. Much like with people, you only get a few chances. If you're difficult, people are going to lose trust. We've heard many stories of organizations that have struggled to promote digital adoption because they lost customers at the first hurdle, the sign-up. Often, this is by requiring a tenant reference or a payment reference to validate an account. Like with your Vodafone account number, a normal person doesn't have this kind of information at hand. It's on a piece of paper, squirreled away somewhere, or lost in the noise of an inbox. One organization we worked with increased their digital engagement by 250% by allowing customers to register without the use of a reference number. Instead, they use other forms of validation, emails, postcodes, dates of birth. As we're originally going to speak about today, we work with Stepping Stones, who offer transitional housing and support to tackle the homelessness problem. Because of their circumstances, many of their customers lack emails, and as they have far more pressing concerns, they struggle to recall passwords, especially given the complexity of modern password requirements. While they might not have personal laptops, they do have phones. So I've worked with Stepping Stone to create a sign-up process that works for them via SMS authentication, sending a one-time access code directly to their devices. So the digitalisation of the repairs process has consistently demonstrated its potential to yield significant advantages, including expanding operational capacity. Prodo clients have consistently seen over 60% of customers register for digital channels, with a high percentage of their repairs now being reported online. One of the things valued most by customers is the ability to skip the phone lines and schedule or reschedule repairs at a time that's convenient for them. Diagnostic pathways are a great tool for ensuring the correct SORs are identified and determining which component is broken in what location, and making sure jobs get raised to the right people. But it's crucial to get it right. A significant point of frustration we've heard is that customers go through a pathway, answering a bunch of questions about what the issue is and where, and then making a lot of clicks only to get to the end and receive a message telling them to call a number anyway. So a tool we've used in the past is TreeJack to assess repair pathway functionality. Customers were given a repair reporting scenario, and their steps were recorded to see if they followed the ideal user journey or reached the intended outcome. This research was invaluable for identifying obstacles and enhancing the customer repair journey. As 60 to 70% of our traffic is on mobile devices, we've been exploring ways we can short-circuit the repair pathway process using the extra capabilities these tools unlock. Like the rest of the world, and undoubtedly the key buzzword of the moment, we're experimenting with AI and learning what it can do for us. Our image AI has been trained to detect objects, including boilers, doors, sockets, taps, and toilets, as you can see on the screen. From there, using speech to text, customers describe the problem and location. And you can see in the video, an issue can be raised in around 20 to 30 seconds. From an accessibility standpoint, we can expand upon this so that customers can speak in their native tongues and keywords are identified and translated. Another strong theme from customers is that they don't want to just fire off a request and hear nothing. They want timely updates on service requests to be able to see their status and get regular updates. Enabling two-way messaging in the portal allows customers and housing providers to clarify issues and track progress. Another crucial element is giving clients a voice, an ability to express themselves about the service they receive. Most of us have had the experience of a delivery going to the wrong address or having your fragile item hurled into a garden. Imagine the frustration if you couldn't tell the delivery service just how much this inconvenienced you. It's the same with repairs and other services like ASB resolutions. That's why we're looking to close the loop and give tenants the ability to give feedback after a job has been completed, such as repairs, which can give valuable data that can then be used to gauge and assess contractor performance. We'll just move on to a couple of case studies. This one in particular relates to how a client successfully rolled out the product to their client base. So this client is a recent one. They did a good job of creating customer-led stage gates as part of their rollout. So rather than shooting their shot and inviting all tenants at once, an iterative approach was adopted, allowing for adjustments in messaging and communication strategies to ensure the success of the full launch. Also, by maintaining a small focus group, the client managed responses effectively, ensuring each participant's contributions were acknowledged and acted upon. They started with a pilot launch by inviting 15 tenants who demonstrated a willingness to collaborate and enhance the new service. Participants in this focus group received gift tokens and vouchers in exchange for their feedback. And their feedback was collected on a range of areas, from the registration process to the aesthetics and design, to the language of the portal, tone of voice, and the navigational pathway. This focus group allowed the client to integrate feedback and make timely changes. Crucially, it facilitated error detection, a 50% failure rate in tenant registrations due to human errors and system issues related to tenancy reference numbers. By identifying these problems early on, the client developed a detailed registration guide as part of their communication campaign for phase 2. Here, they invited an additional 30 customers with high net promoter scores, low arrears, minimal repair history, and no active complaints. So these individuals provided constructive feedback and were keen for the new service to succeed. Based on the learnings from stage 1, they switched the invitation method from email to text and had a dramatic improvement in engagement and registrations overnight. The final phase involved inviting an additional 55 tenants. This group included users who had raised multiple repair requests in the past year or had lower NPS scores. This allowed for a broader range of opinions and more critical evaluations, such as the clarity of repair pathways and the ease with which users could complete tasks. By this stage, no issues were reported with the registration process. A key element of this controlled launch was the creation of daily dashboards that track tenant invitations versus registration numbers, including failed sign-ups, issues, and feedback.
Great stuff. Thanks for that, Tom. It gives us a real good picture of, I suppose, some examples and some background in terms of the importance of engagement point of view, particularly from an ease of use perspective, from a digital solution standpoint, which is obviously a big part of what we're here to sort of help with. I think another good example of this from a case studies point of view is something we've spoken about a few times, this one, but for Stockport Homes, slightly different type of project here, but one of our really long-standing clients, we were asked to rebuild a number of their websites, and tenancy engagement was a key part of that. I know, Liv, you're quite close to this project and Stockport as a client. Would you mind elaborating on this one a little bit for us?
Yeah, of course. And I think it's really important to kind of reflect on everything that Tom said in terms of that iterative development and iterative changes off the back of customer engagement, which is kind of the cornerstone of kind of the Stockport example that we're going to talk through. So as Jake said, we rebuilt a number of websites, but ultimately the goals of the Stockport Homes website was to allow customers to find the information that they were looking for while self-serving more effectively, and ultimately leading those customers to use the website over any other channels. So they kind of achieved this in a number of ways, but one thing that we worked with them on is their kind of extensive engagement and feedback, and it was a really, really prime example of customer engagement and doing that at scale. So they collected feedback from over 1,400 residents, ensuring that the website's design and kind of user experience mapped what they needed and their intended audience and their goals. So one of the ways that we did this was to pop Hotjar on the current website to see how that was being used, and then employing those heat maps and tracking markers to inform how the new website was designed and how it was going to be working. But also on top of that, we had various customer service surveys going on. They had things happening within their offices as well for those that couldn't engage kind of online. And also they used TreeJack, which is what Tom was talking about earlier in terms of those repairs pathways, to understand how people were using the site in terms of navigation, making changes off the back of that. So everything was really well informed, and it was really kind of clear then from a results point of view. So if we just go on to the next slide. So one of kind of the stats that really calls out to us is kind of a 40% increase on conversions post-launch, and that kind of ultimately shows the success of that tenant engagement and how those changes have positively affected Stockport customers and the website. In 2023, they won Best Digital Experience Award, which obviously we're all very proud of, but also a great example and case study of how engagement works at its best. I think finally we did a Housing Hive on this topic alone. So if you haven't seen that, then click on the link that I just shared and they can check it out there.
Thanks, Liv.
Great stuff.
And then this final one from you, Tom.
Yeah, just one final point to make here. Digital engagement should be an ongoing process. It's essential to continuously involve tenants to ensure digital services evolve and keep pace with their needs. Regularly soliciting and incorporating tenant feedback helps to identify emerging requirements and preferences, enabling organizations to make necessary adjustments and improvements to their platforms. This proactive approach ensures that digital services remain relevant, user-friendly, and effective in meeting tenant expectations over time.
Yeah, it is that evolving picture, isn't it? And I think just even back before we get into the questions that we've had, so a number of you got back to us this morning with some queries that you'd like us to run through, and some of these are from us as well. I think if you loop back to the very start of this today, talking about the importance of tenancy engagement and the purpose of it, and also if you think about the purpose of digital platforms, and then these examples that the guys have run through here, so the portal client who went through the iterative launch process and made adjustments and tweaks to certain elements to make sure that the output at the end, with the invitation via text over email and some tweaks around tenancy reference numbers and things, was a massive increase in registrations and sort of no feedback in terms of queries or concerns from the users. And then similarly with the Stockport example, what we want these solutions to do is for people to find them easy to use, find what they're looking for nice and easy, and therefore hopefully gain the benefits of a well-adopted digital platform. And you can sort of see that from the Stockport example as well. But both of those examples in particular have been through different aspects of tenancy engagement, and then therefore had the output tailored for them based upon that feedback. And ultimately the results have been better than probably they would have been if that engagement hadn't have happened. So that's exactly what we want, isn't it, from digital platforms, from these transformational projects and new solutions and things. So I think it does kind of feed into that importance and purpose of tenancy engagement as a whole, generally, really, I would say. So thank you very much for that, Tom and Liv. So yeah, from a Q&A point of view, if anyone does have anything that they wanted to sort of ask, pop it into the chat pane, or if anyone's got anything to sort of talk through themselves from a tenancy engagement point of view in terms of good sort of practices or things that have gone well for you, then obviously feel free to do so as well. But yeah, the first one, I suppose, for you, Tom, but also yourself, Liv, if you've got anything to sort of add to this as well. We talked quite a lot today about, I suppose, digital solution ease of use and the sort of the methods to getting there, and parts of that being tenancy engagement, hearing feedback, and therefore making change off the back of that feedback, ultimately the result being a solution which is designed around needs. But what are the common sort of barriers that you tend to hear about when we run these projects from an effective tenant engagement point of view? And if there is barriers you can think of, have you got any specific guidance or ideas around how to overcome those as well from a digital point of view? That'd be good to know.
Yeah, good question, Jake. I guess one of the most common barriers we encounter relates to digital literacy gaps, but we also see a lack of trust in new technology and some general resistance to change. So in general, to overcome these, it's a good idea to provide training and support to improve digital skills and foster trust, basically, through transparent communication. So one technique is to, for example, provide some comprehensive documentation as to how the portal works, how to get the most out of it. Also, because people are time poor and usually don't spend a lot of time reading documents, it's always a great idea to produce videos as well, showing users exactly how they can go about getting the most from the portal.
Yeah, great stuff. Makes sense, Tom. Anything for you on that, Liv?
I think something that springs to mind is Jake and I actually went down south somewhere to a client to do a tenant engagement session, and one of the challenges that they had was, what we really want to do is get the people that are not digitally engaged in a room And actually, if they're not digitally engaged and they don't want to engage, how do we then get them to engage and come in? And what they found was that we had kind of a bunch of people who'd never engaged in any way in for a workshop. And there was kind of really challenges to get there. A couple of days before, we only had a handful sign up. But it was all about kind of exploring the possible benefits to them. And then when they came in, it was talking to them about kind of different digital solutions that were on offer that they had no idea about. And it was kind of things that they had been communicated about time and time again, but it kind of shone a light on where those comms were falling flat. So if they were being sent it on a post, they might just throw it straight away in the bin or whatever it might be. So it was kind of really insightful getting a small amount of feedback at a time from different groups to then look at how that might be affected the wider tenancy basis as well.
Even from that initial invitation piece as well, wasn't it? Because like you said, when we were due to go down there, it was quite light on numbers, and I think there was some specific tweaks made to those channels used for the invitations and things as well, because it is obviously, like we were saying before, quite a diverse set of people, isn't it, with different needs and different preferences of communication. So I think that was another piece which kind of fed quite nicely into that. But on the tenancy engagement piece as a whole, obviously us as a digital solutions provider and consultant, if you like, with various sort of services and products, is the sort of whole tenancy engagement piece as a core deliverable something you're hearing a little bit more about, Liv, obviously you work with many of our clients as it is right now, for when it comes to planning sort of projects with clients in the housing space?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's becoming more of a kind of popular topic when we're talking about new projects or kind of justification around projects. So we've kind of taken a bit of a switch lately and a really good one, I think, where projects are kind of defined by customer need as opposed to business need first, which is a really interesting kind of diversion in terms of that focus. But also, I think from a new business point of view, when we are looking at tenders and things together, we definitely see that as more of a key focus in terms of the deliverables and kind of the requirements of any project. So I think across the board, it's definitely becoming something that is the focus.
Yeah, there's various types, isn't it, that we kind of see, and sometimes it's a housing association who's done quite a lot of it up front themselves, created the brief, and therefore has gone to market for a potential supplier with it. But you're right, from the tenders that we see in the briefs and things that we talk about in terms of challenges and potential solutions with housing associations, I think it is becoming more popular that you're looking for the digital partner to do some delivery on that for you, or at least assist with it to ensure that the output off the back of that is informed by supplier, client, and tenant as well, and therefore that the solution is designed in the best way, I suppose. So no, it's an interesting change. What would you say when it comes to measuring the success of engagement initiatives from a digital point of view would be the place to look? It could be for either of you, I suppose, or both of you.
Yeah, I suppose success could be measured for a variety of metrics. So tenant satisfaction is the typical one, but you've also got engagement rate. So looking at how many people are signing in on a regular basis, how many registrations you have as a percentage of your total portfolio, and looking at the number of repairs coming through self-reporting digital channels and the impact it's having on phone lines, for example. Another way you can assess success is to ensure that your portal collects feedback from tenants as well. So were they able to successfully raise a service request, for example? At the point of them doing so, there could be a little pop-up in the portal that collects their feedback and then allows us as product managers to ensure and collect this feedback and make iterative changes from there.
Yeah, okay, great stuff. Thanks, Tom. It's good to hear about from a KPIs point of view, particularly from your point of view, being so involved in these projects as well. Now, a lot of what we're hearing about at the moment is obviously the tenant satisfaction measures an ongoing piece, and there's data been released recently about the sort of the initial results of those, and a key focus for a lot of our clients and people we're talking to is obviously the consumer reg changes, which came into play April, and sort of adjusting certain methods around engagement and things around those, because you have to, basically, from a compliance point of view. And it might be a bit of an obvious one, this, but I wonder if either of you could build upon how you feel tenancy engagement could contribute to that from a broader goals point of view around satisfaction and sort of well-being generally, I suppose.
All right, I'll take this one. Effective tenant engagement leads to solutions that better meet tenant needs ultimately, which in turn is going to improve satisfaction. So like we talked about earlier in this presentation, when tenants feel like their voices are heard, they're more likely to be engaged positively with their communities, and this kind of contributes to a stronger sense of belonging. So the engagement also helps build trust between tenants and housing providers, and that leads to more cooperative relationships over time.
I think, just to add to that, I think there's kind of a higher emphasis on looking at what you did as a result of that kind of engagement and those voices. So we see a lot of clients doing a kind of "you said we did" approach to things, and actually it's kind of holding landlords accountable to that kind of broader goal of engagement and the benefits that can be led from that, which kind of links back to that, the requirement to have that engagement in the first place to justify kind of spend on certain projects and things like that as well.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, it is really the output of successful engagement with regards to these sorts of projects, the sort of the results of increased adoption on digital, more repairs being reported online, are almost sort of byproducts, I suppose, aren't they, which are sort of driven by that increased or a result of the increased satisfaction, I suppose.
It's a shame that Stepping Stone isn't today, because they do a great job with their monthly send out, which highlights a lot of their champions, the people who have been able to actively use their service and transition out of homelessness, gaining vocations and becoming independent. But they do a great job for the community and really have a strong sense of belonging there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hopefully we can cover that one in the coming months in detail. That's a good point, Tom. So from our point of view, then we've talked a lot so far about engagement as a whole, the sort of the impact of that when it comes to digital projects and solutions, and some of the successes that we've sort of seen and best practices and things. But from our perspective as a digital transformation agency and looking to stay at the forefront of technology and innovation and things, how would you see tenant engagement and the role of it, I suppose, evolving over the next few years, with particularly, and you kind of alluded to one of them earlier, Tom, the buzzword of AI, but emerging technology and how that might impact engagement as a whole?
Yeah, I think the general trend is that things are going to become a lot more personalized and data. And so using technologies like AI and big data to enable basically personalized touches when it comes to engagement with tenants. So we look at the image recognition tool that we have, a lot of scope to expand and build upon that. I think ultimately what users will want is not having to go down a series of pathways and make a lot of clicks on the portal to raise a repair, but instead just being able to describe an issue with speech to text, and then by querying past repairs, coming back with the correct issue and diagnosing it from there. So being able to enable quicker repair reporting. Also for a portal to be responsive to a tenant and their needs. So for example, if they're in arrears, when they log into the portal, providing them with helpful documentation, such as solutions they can take, actions they can take in order to get their finances back under control.
Yeah, I completely agree on that personalization point and sort of becoming more hyper-personalized, because it was even something you mentioned a little bit earlier when you were running through those slides around one of our clients who ran that sort of portal implementation, which was iterative, and the way they did it was by identifying certain segments of customers to invite them for different purposes, and a certain group had low number of repairs and those sorts of things and higher NPS scores. And I think one of the troubles we see across the space, even now, which is slowly changing, to be fair, but I think some housing associations out there, maybe some of you guys on the call today, would find even that part there quite difficult in terms of that segmentation piece, and therefore running those quite tailored pieces of communication, which ultimately will result in high levels of engagement. So I think the data sort of element of that personalisation piece is an ever evolving one, I suppose, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great stuff. Okay, there's nothing through the chat pane, Liv, now, I don't think. Okay, no worries. So just to finish off then, I suppose, as always, parts of this today was sort of informed by certain elements of our book that we published a couple of years ago, and sort of an evolving picture of the information here that we're going to be putting forward in the next few months. But yeah, our book shift is all around channel shift as a whole in housing, really, but more so from a digital transformation lens. There are some practical steps within there that we found have worked really, really well. And we do have an online copy available for free if you want to sort of have a read of that if you haven't already. Some of you might have been given one at one of the events that we've seen you out in the past, hopefully. But yeah, if you want to download a copy, feel free to have a look. And then, I suppose
sorry, Jake, we have just had one question. Where you mentioned about repairs on the portal, this should be a one-stop shop. How do you deal with emergency repairs, which would normally require a phone call from the resident?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I suppose by having those sorts of tools and functionalities in place where you can reach an endpoint and diagnose an issue quicker, you'll be able to get to that point and realize that you need to make the phone call. So rather than the tenant making a series of clicks, when there's a legitimate emergency issue going on, if they can quickly describe the problem and it tells them right away, you need to call this number, it will help to address the issue. But that's a good question.
Yeah, I suppose rather than taking someone right to the end and realising that the problem is they can smell gas in their home and therefore do this, it's early as possible, I suppose, isn't it? You're right. Yeah, that's a good question, Adam. Thanks for that. Any others just through yet? No?
No.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, thank you for that question, Adam. On to the final slide then, I suppose, just to sort of close off, which is just a quick note on the next session. So obviously big changes societally this year. We do have at the end of September on the 26th on Thursday, as usual, at 11 a.m. We have Rachel Williamson joining us, who is Head of Policy and External Affairs at CIH. And we're going to be covering the topic of what the new Labour government means for social housing, because I think obviously there's potentially plenty of policy change coming there and different focuses compared to the previous government. So we're really interested to get CIH's take on this, because obviously they have some content and some information on this themselves. So we'll be covering that topic. So we'll send an email out and some more information on that after this one. So hopefully see you guys for that one at the end of September. But yeah, just wanted to thank you all again for taking the time to join us. Thank you, Thom, for stepping in and running the presentation today, and obviously Liv for your client insights and some more detail around those case studies as well, much appreciated. So thanks very much, guys, and yeah, have a good weekend when it comes, and hopefully we'll see you at the end of September for the next one.